Good morning. Thanks for joining me. It's been a windy night here in Melbourne, but it's nice and sunny and fairly still this morning. Although one of my rose bushes did suffer some damage when a chair fell on it. So anyway, there's always a bit of carnage when there's a lot of wind around, but things aren't too bad. You might notice that my room is looking different. So I've been steam cleaning the whole house over the last week, and that was quite a job, especially moving all the furniture by myself. But I got there, and the place is feeling fresher, and I've switched the room around, so same room, but now you can see the pink wall, which was pink before I came. So I'm just renting. If I wasn't, I would probably pick a different colour, but anyway, it works with the decor, so I hope you like the new look. But anyway, today we are going to be drawing a squirrel, not the one sitting on the chair behind me, William the Conqueror. I guess it's William the Conqueror II. We are going to work from a photo, and you'll get to choose what medium you draw with after we use grey lead. So grab a grey lead pencil, an eraser and a sharpener, some paper, and you'll also need a ruler. You can choose what medium you use to finish the artwork with. So I hope you enjoyed today's lesson, and I'll catch you in a moment. Now, just before we start drawing, I thought I'd do a bit of show and tell, as I often like to do with my students, and always asking them if they've got any artworks that they've done recently that they'd like to show, and sometimes I'll show any cards or things that I've had printed or artworks that I've been working on. Anyway, here is something that I got through my Zazzle store just the other day. So I think it's called the Classic Mug style, and you can find this on my Zazzle store if you type in Robert Kingdom Art into the Zazzle search bar, and even if you just type in Robert Kingdom. And for this one, this is called The Grounds at Pemberley, so it's based on Lime Park in Cheshire in the UK. And this is the building that the BBC filmed for Mr. Darcy's house in their series of Pride and Prejudice a number of years ago. So that's part of an artwork that I did for a friend. I then popped on the mug, and I changed the background colour as well. The original's black and white. It was a pen drawing, and I've changed the background. So on Zazzle, you can, if you wanted a pink or orange, yellow background, whatever, then you can add different colours on there as well. So, but I'm really happy with that. It feels nice. It doesn't feel like a tacky sort of mug that is where everything's going to wash off quickly. Yeah, it feels quite solid. Sounds great as well. Feels nice to hold. So yeah, if you'd like to grab one of those, you can get onto the Zazzle store, and sometimes they do have some good savings. Like this, they had 50% off recently, off their mugs and some other things, cards as well. So I was able to get that then. If you keep your eye out for some of the specials, that can be a great way to get my products a bit cheaper as well, and it doesn't affect the royalty to me that I get from any sales, so you don't have to stress if you're wanting to support me as an artist. It's not going to take away from my earnings. I think they'll wear that themselves. So anyway, if you'd like one of those, I'll pop onto my store. But let's get started now. The squirrel, and you will have seen the squirrel on the chair behind me at the start, and his name is William the Conqueror. My mum bought him for me several years ago, so he's always a very welcome guest in my studio room. Now, the first thing we should consider doing, and you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I think it would be helpful to draw a simple grid, a cross grid, or like a window frame grid. You can have a cup of, what is it, pure chamomile tea to wet the whistle. Okay, so some artists will rule up lots of squares for a grid, and you might have done that yourself as an exercise at school at one point. But I find that it's easy to get a bit lost in all those squares. Maybe you're different, maybe you find it very straightforward. But when I was reading the book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards, which is a fantastic classic art book, she recommends doing this crosshair grid, or cross grid, whatever you want to call it, where it's just a simple line and line, like a cross shape or a window frame. And she finds that to help you work out where things should be positioned in place to one another, rather than making it too complicated. So I'm just going to measure. So I've got my squirrel halfway on the page, and I shall grab my trusty calculator because I can't be bothered working it out in my head. So 29.7 divided by 2, 14.85. It's A4 paper that I'm using. So 14.85. And then this way it is 21. So 21 by 2 is 10.5. I should have been able to do that in my head straight away, but and so now I just need to work out where the midpoint was. So I need to now hang on, what I need to do is put that measurement up higher as well. So we had 18 point, I'm going to have to measure that, I've forgotten, 14.85. So I need to do that just up here. 14.85. 14.85. There it goes. And then I can just rule my line. I'm going to press harder so that you can see this on the camera, hopefully. And then other line, we had 0.5, so I shall measure 10.5. 5. Using the old State Bank ruler that my dad gave me many years ago when he worked in the State Bank of Victoria, which no longer exists. It was gobbled up by the Commonwealth Bank of Australia. Alright, so there's my lines. Just make sure it's in the middle, 10.5. Yes. Okay, I could have used also trusty set square, which would, even if I just did one dot, then I could have just lined that up with the edge of the page, and yoink, there's my line. And I could have done that way as well. So if you can grab one of those, it does save some time. You're trying to do this kind of thing, or even if you're doing perspective drawing and drawing buildings and things like that, it can be really helpful. Drinking from my Friendly Village cup and saucer by Johnson Brothers, which is always nice at Christmas time. Okay, now I have my cross grid in place, and I've got a cross grid over the photo of the squirrel that I'm looking at now, and that will just help me to be able to position things to work out where is the head going to go in relation to the legs and the tail and so on. A bit of a guide there. I'll move Mr. Calculator. And now you've probably seen the book or things on YouTube where people will draw circles and ovals and things when they're trying to draw an animal or an object or a person. They try and break it down into simple shapes. I didn't grow up in that technique, and I used to be a bit puzzled as a kid when I'd see some of those diagrams and thought, oh, I'm not quite sure how that works. And yeah, I never really got into it, but I just learnt to draw looking at things without breaking them up into simple shapes. But more recently I've sort of realized, okay, yeah, it is just identifying what are the basic shapes, popping those in just as a rough guide to help you, and then you can refine them and rub out bits. You don't obviously leave those circles and ovals and things there. So I'm going to look at the basic shape of the body of the squirrel. And I'll probably have to do a lot of rubbing out, which is fine. It's part of the process. It doesn't mean you're a bad artist if you need to rub lots of things out. It's just part of the process. Okay, so I'm looking at basic shape. I'll just make it something kind of like that. So there's the body. I'm going to bring some bits in as I go along. The head is kind of like an oval shape, and it seems to start about here. It goes down a bit underneath. I'm just doing loose sketchy lines rather than one solid oval or something. And hopefully again you can see these lines. I will go over the more detailed bits a bit darker. You can see them. And I'm also looking to see where along this line, compared to my picture on the screen, should the nose go. Although, if the picture you're drawing is not in exactly the same format, like the rectangle here is actually a bit shorter than what I've got on the screen. The picture on the screen is made for doing videos, so it's a little bit longer. So it actually doesn't matter too much, so long as I'm comparing all the bits of the squirrel with each other. That's the important bit for this. Okay, so I'll just pop that basic shape in there. And then the tail, the part of it sort of curves up around here. And then there's this sort of fluffy shape, which I don't want to go too close to the edge. It comes across the line and it comes out to about here. And that's the line for where the really dark shadowy bit is on the tail. And then there's more of the fluffy stuff that comes out here. So I'll just curve that around, bring that back down around here. And already I can look at it and go, yes, it's either a squirrel or a very strange teapot. Appropriate time for a sip of tea. Now, start to refine things. I don't think I particularly need to do any more of those basic shapes. So I'm just going to make sure though that I'm happy with the size of different parts in relation to each other. See if I need to adjust anything. And now I really want to be looking a lot at the rule itself and not just relying on the shapes that I've drawn, but using my powers of observation to really look at what I'm drawing. I'm still trying to identify shapes and size of things, how they relate to each other, the measurements of things, length, the width, and so on. But I'm referring everything also back to that grid, particularly the middle part there. And I might find along the way that I do need to still adjust a few things, rub bits out, and that's fine. But it's better to do this preparatory, it's a hard word to say, preparatory work first. Otherwise, if you have things in the wrong position, don't fix them up to start with. You don't do all the rubbing out and moving and so on, then you might just be disappointed later on when you start shading and so on. It's going to be a bit late then to really make many changes without it showing up. Okay, so popping the arm in, looking to see where the arm that's further to the right, where that comes up to in relation to the squirrel's head. Roughly around there, and then the hands are down here, moving around like that. Cute little paws. And I loved seeing the squirrels when I was in the UK for a year, or nearly a year, and there were some at Capernwray at the Bible College I lived at for 9 months, and it was so cute to see them scampering about, even on those really cold, frosty days. There they were, jumping around, and they had a really cute way of sort of leaping around, quite rhythmical. Okay, so fat little arms. Now the arms, or the fold in the skin sort of around the neck sort of seems to go up here a bit as well, like a little chicken drumstick. And then there's a bit of the neck. I'm still just doing loose, sketchy lines. I may have to adjust the filters on the video just so that you can see the contrast or see the lines show up a bit better. I'm just hesitant to go too dark when I rub them out. Still see them. Alright, just changing the shape, looking at the shape of the chin or the neck, how it goes up a bit and then comes down for the chin. And then it goes up and in, there's the mouth. Around here. Looks like it's about to say something. And apologies about the barking dog in the distance, but this house is surrounded by barking dogs. And yes, it is rather tedious at times. People go out and have no idea that their dog is doing that all day. And we're all too polite around here to tell them. Alright, so there's the nose. I'm just looking up here, and I think I might need to bring the back squirrel down a bit. Even down a bit more, perhaps. Rub those bits out with my blue eraser. I wouldn't mind a drone that could go around and just, I don't know what you'd put on it to make dogs be quiet, but a dog drone that just goes around the neighbourhood and, I don't know, maybe it drops off a treat or something for them, or just does the teacher thing and says, quiet. Okay, so popping in the ears, looking to see how close it gets to there. I think I might need to move it over just a little bit. And work out how high up it goes. I reckon if you could keep squirrels as pets, they'd be brilliant, because they wouldn't be barking all day. And they wouldn't drive you nuts, they'd be gathering nuts. Okay. So that ear will come down about there. And then the eye. Let's see, it comes down a fair way, which makes me wonder if I've made the head a bit too tall. We shall see. Maybe not. It's a nice beady eye. And it sort of comes up a bit and across like that. And then there's the eyelids, which goes up a little bit. And there goes the revving car. Lots of those around here too. Imagine what life would have sounded like back in the Victorian era, out in the more countrified areas. You just hear the occasional cow and the horse and ducks. And I'm sure the dogs were much better behaved back then. Okay. I think I'm happy with that face. Okay. Ear might need to come up just a tad. And then I am a bit worried. I might not have left enough room down the bottom for the feet and so on. We shall see what happens. might actually just bring this up a little bit more. Okay, well, in the photo, there's not actually a lot of space down the bottom anyway. So I think the foot sort of comes out down like this. And one way, you know, because I'm looking at it thinking, oh, I wish it was a bit higher. If I actually add some blades of grass, then I can neaten that up later. But it's not going to matter, so it's can actually bring the grass up a bit without it looking like the squirrel's too close to the bottom of the page, if that makes sense. So I can bring the blades of grass right down, and that will just really help sort out that problem a bit, like that. I think that works. Okay, now let's have a look at the tail. Okay, and I need to look at the back of the legs there and just work out whether I've made him a little bit too fat. Too much Christmas pudding. And then looking at the back, and it seems to not be quite so curved there. Something a bit more like that. Okay, so this is the dark part where the tail goes. Sorry, it didn't quite make sense. The dark part of the tail, where the shadows go. Maybe a water pistol mounted on a drone. Maybe that would be good for barking dogs. Okay, so I think I'm quite happy with him. I'll call it a him. Okay. So now I've got the main bits in, and I'm just trying to step back a bit. Something you can do is to, I don't want to lose my spot desk, but if you hold your work away from you and compare it to the picture you're working from, then that can be a good way to just see whether things looking in proportion or whether you need to change some bits. and hone in on some of the fine details. It's just a little bit of a bump there. Maybe that's where the other eye comes out a bit. And then there's these rather ridiculous looking hairs that pop up, like someone that needs to go to the hairdressers and have their ears shaved, or whatever the expression is. And some more sticking out here. Reminds me of a certain politician from the UK. Alright, and then within the eye, and this is where it starts to really come alive once you do the eye, draw in where those reflections of light are going to be. And the rest of that will be dark. And I just need to bring the chin area up a bit more. I think that's a bit better. Bring that bit up a bit higher. Oh, very cute. And the nose area. And those dogs are really driving me mad, so I think I'm going to finish in a moment and then come back to finish my drawing. And the dogs have learnt some manners. Dogs just shouldn't do such things in such a civilized society. They should have learnt better by now. Alright, I am going to leave. I'll put a few more blades of grass in there just to keep him warm and comfy. Alright, so I'm going to come back to this when the dogs have stopped doing their thing. I shall catch you shortly. Okay, so I am back and the dogs are no longer barking, which is lovely. And it's a couple of days later and I clearly have a new cup of tea. So we are ready to go on with Mr. Squirrel. First thing I'd like to do is to now rub out the guidelines in those spaces. And just a reminder that we do want to press lightly when we're putting in those lines, and even when we're doing our initial sketches, doing the outlines and things. So I can still see those lines a little bit, but that's okay. For our demonstration, get rid of all the rubber dust. Just be careful of some erasers. This one's a really good one, the Faber-Castell one. It doesn't seem to leave any blue marks. I did buy some black ones and they did leave some black smudges, so you might just want to try them out first before you put them on one of your nice artworks. Okay, so I'll just fill in those extra spaces. Get rid of a few extra little lines that don't need to be there. You might want to use a dry brush or something to get rid of those bits if you want to avoid more smudging. The side of your hand can get a bit grey and make things a bit dirty sometimes. Alright, now grab a grey lead and just blend those bits again. That's so nice and quiet. Okay, apart from the ticking of the grandfather clock behind me. Probably someone told me recently if it's shorter than 6 feet then it's a grandmother clock. So I think I have a French grandmother clock with a Narnian twist to it. It's still a work in progress. Okay, so what we have now is the basis for our more finished artwork, but we can, so it's the foundation that we can then build on with whatever medium we would like. So you could just continue on with grey lead and add the shading, add the texture, the tones with the grey lead, or you could use watercolour. And I'll just give you a sneak peek of while I back the chair away. Okay, so here is one that I was doing today with my nieces and another student. I'm doing a rabbit, a bunny, very cute. So you could go the way of watercolour. Use pens. I'm going to use a black fineliner. Use different colour pens. You could do colour pencil. You could even do an acrylic painting or use gouache or do a collage or something. So really, the possibilities are endless. But I decided I'm going to use a 0.5 Unipin fineliner, water and fade proof pigment ink. So it shouldn't fade. It shouldn't really smudge if it gets a bit wet. And this is fairly thick compared to the ones I normally use. Normally I use a 0.1, but because this is a sketch and I don't want to take too long on this, I'm going to use the thicker pen. So I find the thicker ones are really good for sketching with, because you're not feeling too precious about things. You're not trying to capture every little detail. But when I am wanting to do a highly detailed artwork, then I will use the 0.1 fineliner. Alright, so let me just fix my screen so I can still see Mr. Squirrel. Okay, and so I'm just going to do this still in sort of sketch mode rather than a highly polished drawing. I'm trying to capture thing. And I'm not necessarily sure where the best spot to start is, although I'm looking at the dark part of the tail and I'm thinking, oh, that might be a good place to start adding in some details. You should definitely be able to see these lines now that I'm using the black pen. So look a bit sketchy and scribbly to start, but we'll build up layers. And I am trying to work quickly. I'm imagining that Mr. Squirrel's there out on the lawn, which would be nice here in Melbourne, but we don't have squirrels. But I'm imagining he's just out there on the lawn, and I'm trying to sketch him before he scampers off. Does whatever squirrels do. Double lines to add in a bit more shading. Over it again. And I'm not being too precious about neat. Okay, and now get some strands going out here. I don't have to make them all fairly uniform. And I think I need to make this area come up a bit more. Okay, and then come in. So this will probably end up looking like a book illustration, you know, like in a kid's novel or something. Maybe like in the Narnia books, where you don't have every tiny detail in there. But you can still see lots of line work, a variety of tones. Looking to see where the lines change a bit in the fur, which helps to create a feeling of movement. The 3D thing. Okay. Now I'll come over here and I'll change the direction because I want that bit to look like it's curving down that way. So lines do play an important role in an artwork, helping to show the contours, the changes of direction on different objects and surfaces to create with that 3D look. Okay, just looking at the shadows, where the fold of the leg is. Okay, and I'm trying to work as quick as I can without being too rough. Obviously, if you want to take longer, if you want to make it into a more polished drawing, that's fine. Take it in whatever direction you want. Better rush because Mr. Squirrel is getting a tad impatient. You want to be looking at the fur, looking at the strands of hair, help you work out what direction to move your pen in. See where the lighter bits are, and don't be afraid to leave some bits pure white. You can always come back to those bits if you need to, but it's better to leave some blank areas to start with and come back to them later, rather than go over them too soon and then regret it. Alright, fairly dark. And this bit here where the leg comes down. Also have to rush because I have online class soon. Where shall I go? Back to the tail. Now I'm not going to fill in the background on this, I don't think. So, like if I was going to put in a background, I would not stress about doing the edges of the tail so much. I would use the background to provide contrast. I could just leave those bits white and bring the darker bits in. But because I'm not going to add in the background, apart from the grass down below, instead I'm just going to continue the lines out a bit, but not make them too solid, and put a few random hairs and things out as well. Curve lines around. And I might go on the diagonal here with a bit of shading in this spot. And do some lines in the more natural direction. Okay, let's go over here now. I don't know that it really matters that much where you start and where you finish. Sometimes you just get a bit bored of a certain space and think, oh, I'll move over here for a while. Keep looking back at the squirrel. Even try to forget that it's a squirrel and just look at the tones, look at the shapes, look at how things relate with each other. You can just call it a furry, cute thing. A drawing, forget the name of it for a while. And then when you're done, go, oh, what a wonderful squirrel. Okay. More shading around here. And there's light that's hitting the top of the arms. So I'll try to preserve that bit. I need to slow down a little and just look a bit more carefully. Your little hands. Okay, and then I'll leave that bit lighter for now. Just do a few furry lines, or ziggy lines. And then bring it around here. Change the direction a bit. And carefully again, the other hand, the shape. That will roughly do for now. Again, I'm just going to do some little lines like this at the edge without making it too solid. Same on the edge of the hand. Oop, computer's going to sleep. Okay, let's look at the chin. The squirrel does have white whiskers, but I can't be bothered carefully going around every little bit to leave the whiskers in. I could actually use masking fluid and draw over it once it's dry, but I'm just going to pretend he has black whiskers to make it easier. He won't mind. Okay, a bit lighter in here. And let me continue going down back. Hear a beeping noise in the background. Maybe someone's burnt their dinner. Okay, time for a cup of tea. And try not to sneeze. Let's see, I think I'll leave the foot for now, but I will just do a few light lines. And remember, you can actually apply different amounts of pressure to a fine liner, and you can move it more quickly. So if you want lighter lines, and just move the pen quickly and don't put much pressure on it. Hopefully you can see the difference between those lines and these. Let's do a few of those, show that there is a bit of shadow in there. And then down here, do a few of those wispy lines to show the edge of the fur, not looking too solid. Oh, cute little tummy. Now, there's a bit of a shadow where the leg is. And a little bit more shadow across here. All right, let's have a look up the tail. I feel like going up there for a bit. There's sort of just random little streaks of grey in the tail here, so I'll break the lines up a bit. Change the direction as we go around. The wispy ends on the tail, so it curves over a bit. I'm sure he's given it the best brush that he could before he went outdoors. And just curve it around there. A bit more shading around the end part here. Shading in there, a bit darker. And there will be some streaky bits. It's fairly light at the end. Set in a few little shaded areas. Right, half an hour before my next class. Do remember to send in a photo of your squirrel drawing if you can. Love to see what you produce, or it might be a squirrel painting. It might be a word that's hard for me to say. Squirrel. Okay. Alright, so it does get nice and dark in that spot. Gives good contrast. And I could hide my signature in there somewhere. Okay. A few more lines needed in these bits. Make it look a bit streaky. Sort of breaking it up with slight diagonal lines rather than just doing straight lines. Try and make it look a bit more haphazard or a bit more natural. Very and fuzzy. Right now there are a few streaky bits along here. Okay, that's looking good. A bit more over here. A little bit more shading just under here. Alright, I like that feel. Although it does get a little bit darker up here, so I might just go on the diagonal a bit under here. There. Okay. Tea. Is chamomile again. Okay, bring the tail down just a bit more. And now let's look at those ears. It's fairly dark in here. I don't want to make it solid black though. Just do some gaps between the lines. A bit more solid at the bottom where it's darker. Look like it's a bit fuzzy as well. And then look to see where it gets darker and where it stays lighter. Okay. And then on front of the ears, darker as well. To here. Curving around a bit. Oops. And then I might do some little dot. Could do just tiny lines there. So turning them into little lines now. Go over here. Short little lines, fairly close together, but leave some bits where it's lighter to add variation. Look carefully at the photo to help you with that. Little lines to show the nice velvety fur. And then in where the eye is, this will be the fun bit where we get to use solid black. But I do want to preserve those reflections. So leave some white bit. And I'll just put another little white bit in there. And the rest of that beady little eye can be black. And it's the eye that makes him really come alive. Bring the dark line up the top. Looks like a little plum pudding. Without the cherry or holly or whatever people put on top of a plum pudding. Okay, and then there's a bit of the fold of the eyelid that comes down this way. Slight little white dot there. My dishwasher's making more gurgling noises in the background. Carefully there, I don't want the eyelid to look too dark. And then there's a bit of a gap where it's lighter, and then we've got velvety fur again. Just very short lines. And remember, you can vary the pressure to help a bit with the tone. Put a gap between the lines. Right, that's looking good. Okay, so yeah, this is the area that probably takes the longest where you're doing those tiny lines. Around the area, it gets a bit darker in here. And continues down there a bit. Comes in a little bit over here. And then we have it getting darker in this little section, almost like a triangle, a bit darker. Trying to make it, the whiskers go in, some little dots, make it look like tiny little patches. And then with the nose, reasonably dark, being lighter as it goes out towards the front. Down a bit more. Okay, so we're nearly there. Actually, we're going down here for a break from the tediousness. That in a little bit down there. Right, let's have a look up here. I'm just going to rub out really a little bit there where I want a bit more of a gap. And I want it a little bit darker. Bring the fur of the arm up a bit more. Bring a little bit around. And there, now the mouth. A little smile. Yeah, happy chappy. And do a few more of those dots around here. And lines to add in a bit more shading. And a bit of a line around here. And then we've got more of these little lines that take a while. So if I was drawing this with grey lead, it would be quicker. Having to stress quite so much about the placement of your lines. When we're doing a sketch, there are pockets of a sketch where you do want to take a bit more time. Alright, and I've got 20 minutes till my lesson. Dark and velvety on the ear up here. Kind of flat at the top of that one. Lighter in the middle. I didn't need to go quite so solid there, but let's just say sometimes your hand just does things that you didn't mean to. A few little bits of hair, edge of the head there. And again, if you were doing the background, it's darker, you could actually just use the darkness of the grass or whatever to provide that edge there. And now for the hairy ear, whispery bits on the ears. Always slightly amusing. We don't want to make them look too solid. Except where we can see that the is a bit darker. Okay, and the feet. I need to add the feet in. Bit hard to see the detail on the feet, so I won't stress too much. And I do have the grass there to hide some of it. A bit darker down towards the bottom of the feet. Draw in some lines with the toes. Go. here. Okay, nearly there. Darker. Add in some more bits around here. A little bit longer in this bit. And I need to get to here and add some more lines. A bit of an edge there. More shading in some parts here. And some grass. I'm not going to stress too much about making them look exactly like blades of grass. Get the general impression of it. A few shadowy bits as well. Change the direction of some of them. Bring some shadowy bits down as well. Otherwise it looks a bit funny. Is that the wash is done? Nice. More blades of grass over here. Okay, and let's see, let's add my signature in down here. Why not? 2022, and then I shall the eraser and just over here, starting with the areas I know will be dry. And then if I find that it reveals some areas that are just a bit too open, a bit lighter than I'd like, then I can come back and just add a few more lines. Make sure the eye is nice and clean. And get rid of the rubber dust. Okay, and there's still some streaky bits, smudgy bits around here. It's streaky down there as well. And again, you might want to use a dry brush or something to do this bit with. Alright, so let me just stand up and make sure you can see this in shot. And I will just have another quick look. I might just up the nose area slightly. Make it a little bit darker in the mouth. Make this go around a bit more. That's nice. Check the hands. The hands do look a bit different in the photo to what I've ended up with, but that's okay. They don't look deformed or anything, so I could just go a little bit darker in this spot here. Minutes into my class. Okay. Just a little bit more shading around hind quarters. More shading over here with that 3D look. Okay, I might a bit darker around the area as well. More shading. Yeah. That around. And a little bit darker around the arm. Maybe add a couple more blades of grass up here. And I think that will do. Okay, so there is, let me check the view again. Yes, we're in focus in the center. Good, there is Mr. Squirrel. Well, I've got William the Conqueror. I guess he'd be William the Conqueror II behind me on the chair, so this might be William the Conqueror III. Unless there's some other William the Conquerors I haven't heard of. So there we go. So have a go at drawing the squirrel yourself, and I'd love to see what you come up with, whether it ends up being a drawing or a painting. And yes, if you enjoyed this video, remember to click the like button, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please click subscribe and share the video with others that might be interested. And remember, I do teach some online classes, live classes through Zoom. And I also have my products on Zazzle. So if you head to my website, which is www, that takes a long time to say, .robertkingdomart.com.au, sorry, no au, just .com, www.robertkingdomart.com, and you'll be able to find a link to my Zazzle store. or you can just look in the description box below the video and link there, and you can access my products. And who knows, maybe William the Conqueror III might appear on one of them at some point. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you next time, and happy squirreling.